Today we're looking at the Bilt and Wells Fargo breakup, what went wrong and why, also key details from their recent round that foreshadow features of the new cards. I think a lot of people are not going to like that $4.95 annual fee card. Big favor before we dive in is to give this a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. Even though someone that might benefit, then share this a thumb. Wait, what's that? I think Amazon's backing up the truck on some good deals. We're actually going to start with their financial product, which has an almost unheard of offer. Financial product because I don't want to have to take it down in a few days when the offer goes back to normal and it's no longer accurate. But yeah, the typical bonus is $150 to $200 as an Amazon gift card. The bonus right now is $250 gift card that you get instantly, and the only requirement is that you sign up and get approved for the card. Unlike other cards, there's not a minimum spend requirement, so pretty easy there. Offer ends July 14th, 2025. You do need to have a Prime membership, but a lot of people have Prime. So for example, I personally like Prime and I've been using the features for years, mostly for the free shipping. But I guess technically you could do a free trial for the Prime period and also for Prime Day, and then apply for the card and afterwards downgrade back to non-Prime. The card would also be downgraded afterwards as well. There is a question of whether it's worth a 524 slot, and that kind of depends on you. If you're eligible for business cards and you're at 424, then probably not. Especially so if you're backing up some Brinks trucks, given the value on the table. For Team Cashback with only personal cards, it's not bad at all, but just depends on what other options you have on the table. For Team Travel, it depends on you and whether you have other hotel and airline cards that you'd rather get. So on one hand, this is a low-hanging fruit offer and hard to say no to that. On the other hand, there are other cards where you're probably getting $500 to $1,000 in value, which is more. So $500 to $1,000 for spending, let's say $4,000 or $5,000 compared to $250 in value for no spend. Your mileage may vary, so do what makes sense for you, but if you are interested in learning more, I'll leave a link down below. Let's also look at some stuff that's on sale that might be worth picking up. Sony XMs are probably my favorite headphones, and for sub $200, it's a great deal. Even if you have a big head and big ears like I do, it can actually fully fit inside, unlike some other ones where it kind of goes over and hurts your ear after an hour. If you prefer in-ear, then Apple AirPod Pro 2s for $149 aren't bad at all. I think AirPods are great for day-to-day, but these are a bit better for the plane, especially if there are people crying. Speaking of travel, AirTags are on sale for $68 for 4, and they're great for checked bags. Also not bad to have a few for everyday life just in case. If you have points, I'd check for some promotions. For example, use points and get 15% off, max of $15. For a lot of these, there is a bit of a trap here where they want you to use all your points, but you don't actually need to do that. You can use 1 cent or 1 point, and that's actually going to trigger the deal. It is targeted, but I think it's worth checking, and I'll link to a few down below. Speaking of targeted, Amazon is selling the Nintendo Switch 2 with the Mario Kart bundle, and it's actually by them, but you do have to be selected. So you request it, and if you are selected, then they're going to send you an invitation to buy it. I was not selected. If you're traveling, another good pickup would be a battery pack for $59, especially if you want MagSafe. They also have non-MagSafe ones where you would need a wire, but it charges a lot faster. Speaking of charging, Anker also has some pretty nice chargers, great for travel and home use. If you're taking a bunch of pictures on your trip, I'd recommend getting a SanDisk Extreme Portable SSD. Definitely not cheap, but super useful. For context, I have like 8 of these for travel, and I'm a fan. I'm pretty much still a fan of them. I also do have externals, but they're more for home use rather than travel, and this one's 18 terabyte. I have a bunch of them. It surprises a lot of people, but even if you're doing a week trip to Hawaii, you might be shooting 1.5 to 2 terabytes of stuff, especially if you're trying to be comprehensive with reviews. Speaking of which, if you want to see some of these videos and more of Mandy, then you can check out Mandy Roams, where we do the trips. I guess I'm earning the points and she's redeeming them. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room with the Bilt breakup. The main reason being that the bank was losing millions every month. Even last year, we knew that there was trouble in paradise. So back in June of 2024, Wells was not happy with the deal and they wanted to renege to make it profitable. Seemingly, the situation didn't turn around. Initially, it was supposed to end 2029, but Wells decided to exit early since it was losing that much money. Wells warned that they could change the terms of the card if needed to tack on an annual fee of around $250 to $300 in order to make it viable. I'm actually a bit surprised this was shared because it tells us a lot. So each card member was pretty much costing them $250 or $300 per year, and that's the cost. That's what people are getting back in rewards. And to be fair, I think Wells did know that this was a loss leader. The long-term intent is to cross-sell young consumers on mortgages, but the bank pulled back on the space. Put another way, imagine if there was a Costco, but instead of there being a ton of items, there were only hot dogs and chicken, and they were losing money on everything. The math just doesn't work. Another big problem was the structure. Landlords historically don't take credit cards given the fees, typically in the 2 to 3% range. Bilt doesn't charge landlords, and they weren't the ones paying it. They actually had Wells Fargo eating the fee. Even worse for Wells, the card members here were too smart. They figured that they could make money back on interest with people carrying balances, but people are paying their bills in full every month. The subprime audience either didn't want to get the card or couldn't get approved, so it was only optimizers. To be fair though, I think this can affect the new card. The partnership also raised concern about potential money laundering risk, but a Wells spokesperson said that there wasn't really that big of an issue there. Yeah, kind of interesting that they would bring that up. Main reason being that they were warned about this themselves, so maybe they're worried about additional penalties. Also, apparently, even internally, this went back to 2023, so 2 years ago, where they tried to renege. The changes they were going after were lowering the fees that they paid to Bilt in order to facilitate this, scaling by the points that people earn from rent, or requiring card members to spend a lot more on non-rent purchases in order to earn points. I do think a lot of these will come up with the new cards, but we'll get into that. There were also other factors as well, with the Wells Fargo CEO for consumer lending stating that Bilt was a reputational risk. I didn't really get that vibe, kind of curious about you guys and where you fell, but yeah. Earlier this spring, they were shopping the deal to Synchrony and other issuers and actually got pretty far at Barclays. The main thing that stopped it though was that Barclays wanted a 20% discount to buy the loan book and Wells didn't agree. But yeah, Bilt had to find a buyer, otherwise they were in a bad spot. Specifically, Wells Fargo could charge an annual fee and just pocket the difference, stop taking applications, and also product change people to other Wells Fargo cards. Okay, so given this, what do we know and how does it affect the new cards? Key point number one is that Bilt members have prime credit and behavior, so they don't pay enough interest or any interest, so the rewards expense was more than the interest income that Wells was getting. Interest by itself is not a viable revenue stream. Key point number two was that Wells was eating the cost of the rewards, and each card member cost about $250 to $300 per year. That's the net number, so it might have been $500 in value and $250 is the cost. Key point number three is that the loss leader strategy works, but they need to find viable partners that care about this. Whether it's a bank or partner that can sell mortgages, or other vendors or merchants. All of this brings up a lot of questions for the three cards they're launching, and how it's going to change things. If you only have a Bilt card, I'd probably diversify with some other cards, even no annual fee ones, that way you're not going to feel screwed if you don't like the changes. On that note, if you want to learn about cards from pretty much any issuer and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website, asksavvy.com, and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive, but otherwise, it's a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. Okay, let's actually take a step back and look at how cards make money. There's pretty much 5 types of cards. So number 1 is going to be the ones that earn from interest income. Number 2 is loss leaders and kind of cross-selling. Number 3 is interchange, so swipes. Number 4 is annual fees. And number 5 is annual fees with partner credits. And to be fair, a lot of these do mix and meld together, so you might be doing a few different things, but there's still generally one key focus. Interest is pretty straightforward, and as mentioned, doesn't really work with Bilt. Cross-selling to other financial products, especially mortgages, can be worth a ton though. Interchange fees is when you get people to spend a ton on the cards. So even though they are getting rewards and you're paying something, you're getting more back because they might not be spending optimally. The moment they spend on 1x categories is when you as a bank wins, especially since the interchange fee is generally in the 2 to 2.5% range. Annual fees are pretty obvious, and with the first level, it's going to be what I call a workhorse. So that's where you might have a $95 annual fee, you might not have any credits, you have good multipliers, but in order for it to make sense, you have to spend enough. The bank wins because they're getting interchange and still value, and a lot of people who can't do math are not going to spend enough to justify the card. The last option is a $500 annual fee, but with $1,000 in partner credits, where Bilt might not be paying anything, and the partner is either fronting the cost or even paying Bilt for marketing. In that case, Bilt has a margin here, let's say $500, and they can offer more rewards for it because they're getting value. This is the current meta for cards and what I really like, but what a lot of people hate. But yeah, the entire idea is that the card is now a viable standalone product, so the target card members are happy, they're getting value, and the math works out. Non-target though are very angry and pissed off at the card, but then you have other options there, so not too bad. And then for partners, if they get value, then it wins, but if not, then it's a loss. Win-loss depending on recurring customers or whether they're taking empty inventory. The alternative to this model, if they want to still offer great rewards, is probably something like $300 with no credits and yeah, great multipliers. It still ends up being a workhorse, but just a more expensive one. And you don't really want people doing math like that because then they're only going to get the card if they get value, and that's probably a loss for you as a business. Having the partners front the cost though is a win for you as a bank, and you lock it down. Given the whole Wells Fargo situation, I think the Bilt cards now have to move into profitability. otherwise it becomes untenable. Okay, so 5 options, which ones are viable? I think they all work other than interest income. So interchange swipes are going to be the ones that work for everything, and I think that is going to be a big focus. And then cross-selling is still a long-term thing, but I think it is there. A big reason being one of the investors for their raise. So they did just close a $250 million round valued at almost $11 billion. It is a pretty small round, which makes me think it's strategic rather than necessary. At the late stage at this type of valuation, it's not uncommon to still have to sell about 10% of your company for these mega rounds for this like $10 to $20 billion range. And to be fair, this is not a bad sign for Bilt. It means that they're probably in a good financial spot. With all of this, they are launching Bilt Card 2.0 in partnership with Cardless. Cards will move over February 2026, and they're also adding mortgages. They also hint at what features we're going to see with the new cards. A big focus is on their AI-driven commerce platform and comprehensive merchant integrations. This is the space they're growing into and what kind of makes them valuable, so the total addressable market and the whole kind of image and the whole pie in the long term. They're going to have 3 cards, a no annual fee one, $95 annual fee, and $495 annual fee. The reason why I think cross-selling is back on the table is due to their investor. United Wholesale Mortgage invested $100 million as part of this round. So that's the long term, but you need to make the card viable right now. To do this, they're expanding their offerings to condos and HOAs, but also student housing. Given this and the expansion to 3 cards, I think the no annual fee option is going to be more of a starter card and maybe even student card. It won't require you to be a student, but I think it will be targeted to them. In terms of predictions, there are a few different paths they can take. Option number 1 is to have a spend requirement to unlock the rent rewards. For example, spend at least $500 per month on non-rent in order to get rent rewards. Option number 2, which I think makes a lot of sense, is to set a cap for the rewards and make it relatively low. The rationale being that this can target a new consumer, and the $95 one is kind of everyone else. But yeah, given that the old no annual fee card kind of hit their entire audience and was a money loser, I don't think that can keep going forwards and keep working in that way. Having as a starter card of lower thresholds and costing them less money makes more sense. In the same vein that we're not angry about no annual fee cards that offer 5% back in rotating categories, limiting it to $1,500 per quarter. In terms of the $95 annual fee card, also a few different paths here. Option number 1 is to have that spend requirement, let's say $2,000, in order to unlock the rent and mortgage rewards, and that kind of makes sense to me. Option number 2, which I think will still be part of it, is stronger multipliers, so you have to spend in order to break even, like other workhorse cards. Option number 3 is to add some credits, but cheaper ones. There are a ton of levers they can pull here, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do all of them, and if you look at other cards from the big issuers, that's kind of what they do. But yeah, I expect this card to be the bread and butter and what probably makes sense for most people and is the next go-to card. If you had the old card and you got value, this is probably the new one you're getting. The $495 annual fee card is the most interesting to me, and I think you are going to have a ton of credits. The deck and the press release make it pretty obvious. The entire idea of what they're pitching in the long term is as a mechanism to connect housing with local commerce. So on the housing side, you have rental, mortgages, student, condos, HOAs, and that's kind of the earning side with using the card where you get rewards. Straightforward in what we know. The other side is commerce of dining, rideshare, travel, fitness, and pharmacy, and a lot of different partners. I would not be surprised if we see a $200 credit for each of these categories, so $200 for dining, $200 rideshare, travel, fitness, and pharmacy. The smart thing they can do, unlike other banks, is to make it not an individual credit for one partner, but a pool of partners. So let's say a $100 credit semi-annually to any of the fitness partners like SoulCycle, Berries, or Rumble. A lot of people in their target demographic in cities love these fitness classes. Especially if you look at the data, it kind of makes a ton of sense. In New York City, which is their prime audience and their prime market, people spend about $270 per month to work out. So yeah, I definitely think this will be a polarizing card where a lot of people hate it and don't get value and rightfully shouldn't get it, but there are going to be other people where it makes a ton of sense. There's a lot of partners that would happily get new customers or fill empty inventory. Maybe I'm biased, but I wouldn't be against this and I actually get value. Partners are an integrated part of their business and one of the 3 levers that they have to make money. They have a take rate of the monthly housing spend, take rate on neighborhood spend, and then commission on leasing incentives. That pretty much means that they're getting paid by the partners in order to minimize risk and also to have more on-time payments, for the neighborhood ones to get more sales, and then commissions commission. They put themselves right in the middle to facilitate everything and kind of make a win-win-win. Ironically, I think Costco is a very good example. So yes, Costco makes money on memberships, and they also make money selling products. At the same time, they're only willing to take vendors who are willing to give very competitive pricing to Costco. Often you have to have your stuff at 15% less than other retailers for Costco to even take it. So let's say your normal margin is 20%, and with other vendors, they charge 10% in order to stock it and have it on their shelves, so you make 10%. With Costco, they don't charge you that stocking fee, but you have to have it at 15% less, so you make a bit less as well. You're still making 5% though. The thing though of Costco is that they move crazy volume, and it's a win. Talking to founder friends in D2C, Costco is pretty much jet fuel, and you're 10xing your business. So in this case, the neighborhood partners are actually eating the cost and maybe even paying Bilt to unlock customers and get more recurring ones. As a merchant, you have the choice of joining this flywheel and making more money, or you can do it on your own. The argument for the flywheel though, Costco being the example, is that there are some very successful companies that will happily still list at Costco. So for example, Apple is one of the biggest companies in the world. They have distribution, they have stores, they're good to go. They don't need help, but they still go through Costco for some items. The rationale being that it's distribution and moving inventory and also getting their products into more people's hands. Yeah, call me crazy. I don't see normal credits on that $4.95 annual fee card. I think it is all going to be partner stuff because that makes the most sense. That's the most logical. The entire long-term idea and opportunity is unlocking all of this versus just being a credit card. Costco is worth $430 billion. The question is whether Bilt can be kind of the neighborhood version of that and more the local one. I guess in that case, the rewards that you get for rent payments are the hot dogs and the $5 chicken. Again, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website, asksebi.com, and down below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a hot dog emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions. Number 1, what's your thoughts on the whole breakup between Wells Fargo and Bilt, and are you a fan or not so? Number 2, how do you think the 3 new cards are going to be structured? Number 3, what would you want Bilt to add in order to make you interested? Let me know and everyone else know, and potentially them know in the comments down below. Big favor, thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.